Hey guys, what's up? So today I'm going to be taking a look at the Pepers Dirty Tree boost pedal and putting it up against a couple other Overdrive pedals to see what they sound like. So stay tuned. So first up, what I have is my brand new Epiphone Les Paul Prophecy, tuned to drop D, and I'm going into the EV8 Stealth blue channel, and I'm running that in through the DI box into the interface, and I'm using a York Audio Mesa oversized 412 IR. And this is what it sounds like, with no boost. First, we're going to go through blue channel on the EVH, and then we're going to drop down to the Mesa Boogie Triple Rectifier and check it out on that as well. So what are these other boost pedals that I have going on here? Well, I only have two. The first one, though, is the Plumes by Earthquaker Devices. It has three different modes. It has a symmetrical LED clipping mode, a full non-clipping, just clean boost mode, and then an asymmetrical silicone diode clipping mode, very similar to a traditional tube screamer. The other one is the JHS Bonsai. Now, if you know what this is, you know this is 9 different tube screamer circuits all built into one pedal, and it's fully analog. Now, the setting that I'm going to focus on with the JHS Bonsai is the JHS modded circuit, which is like a hot rodded tube screamer. I think it's the most comparable to these other two pedals. And then I'm going to also test out the T10 or the tube, the T10 circuit. That's like John Mayer's favorite, but honestly, it's like a really great tube screamer circuit to put up in front of a high gain amp. And obviously, we're going to start with the Pepers Dirty Tree because this is the pedal that for the longest time now everybody has gravitated towards as being like the must-have pedal, especially for rectifiers. And so why is that? Well, the Pepers Dirty Tree pedal is actually two pedals in one. On the DT side, or the Dirty Tree side, you basically have a clone of the Fortin 33 boost pedal. Basically, the pedal that's been made famous by Meshuggah. And it is an aggressive, just full-bore, hit-you-in-the-face boost pedal. On the other side, the TC mode is basically a copy of the TC Electronics preamp circuit, and it gives you not only, your level, but also an ability to shape the high end and the low end independently. Everything that I have on the board here, there's a lot of variability in the different sounds that I can get. However, I'm just curious, is the Dirty Tree really like the best? So first up, blue channel on the EV8 Stealth with the DT circuit engaged on the Dirty Tree. Without. Yeah, so immediately tightens up the sound, kind of pushes that front of the amp really hard. Once you get about noon or higher, the character of the distortion takes on this like wall-like effect, almost like you've cocked the wall a little bit. Let's go to the TC mode. So automatically, the TC mode gives you a lot more control over that low end. And like if I boost the low end up, you know, a bit, all that tightness kind of goes away and you have a little bit more of like a whoop whoop kind of sound going on. And the high frequency here acts more like an attenuator, almost like a sweep. It doesn't like give you a whole bunch more highs, but once you get the high, you know, kind of dialed up, it just sort of lifts the blanket off a little bit. Either way, on the TC mode and the DT mode, I typically leave the level knob at about noon or a little bit less, just because it really does just have a lot of headroom and pushes into the amp really hard if you get it up there. So anyway, let's go ahead and move on to the Plumes. So right now I have the Plumes set kind of how I like, which is on mode 1, which is the symmetrical LED clipping. It's got a little bit more grit to it, and it also has quite a bit of headroom on the level. Now what the Plumes has that the Dirty Tree doesn't is an actual gain knob. And even though I have the gain completely all the way down on here, you're still getting a little bit more gain in the signal than you are with the Dirty Tree. And that's just, I think, how the circuitry is built in. Both the Plumes and the JHS, both, when you engage them, just kind of saturate the signal a little bit more than what the Dirty Tree does. So let's move on to the full open non-clipping circuit, the Clean Boost mode 2 on the Plumes. Now, interestingly enough, both Mode 1 and Mode 2, I kind of like them set in a similar fashion. I'm going to go back to Mode 1 real quick. So Mode 2 just has a lot more on tap in terms of the signal saturation that you get when you bump up that level. It's almost too much. Like, I wouldn't necessarily push Mode 2 much past, you know, maybe 1 o'clock. But the same with Mode 1 too. I think Mode 1 has a little bit more grit to it, and I like the tone control in Mode 1 a little bit better. So let's go to Mode 3, which is basically an asymmetrical silicone diode circuit that is basically like a tube screamer. So yeah, so a lot of people like Mode 3, I think, because it's the most familiar in terms of how that, you know, that gain structure and that clipping works. Because if you're used to a tube screamer, then Mode 3 you're going to be very familiar with. Again, I like to have a little bit more of that, like, kick you in the balls flavor, so I opt for Mode 1, and I just scale the level back a little bit, but I keep the tone knob about the same. So if you noticed, I was on the TC mode when I was going back and forth between the Plumes and the Dirty Tree. But personally, I think that the DT mode kind of is its own sweet spot. You know, the Plumes just keeps its low end a little bit more intact, and the Dirty Tree just focuses in on that mid-range, just punchy attack going on. And I think both are really cool. Going back and forth between them, I probably prefer the Plumes a little bit more. So let's check out the JHS Bonsai, because the Tube Screamer is the classic, you know, overdrive you put in front of an amp. And so, let's see what we got there. The TS10 circuit, very much that Tube Screamer sound. It's got a bit more low-end heft than either one of the Plumes or the Dirty Tree especially. But I think this pedal, for when you're driving an amp, really comes through when you use the JHS modded circuit. Because the hot rodded circuit on this Bonsai really is kind of more in line with some of these more modern pedals. I really like the JHS Bonsai, and I really like that JHS modded circuit. It kind of fits into that space where thrash metal meets modern. It's not quite as modern and, you know, focused as the Dirty Tree, and it's not quite as gritty just out the gate as the Plumes. So the Dirty Tree is actually a bit more transparent, and I think that's going to become really important when we switch over to the Mesa Boogie. When we get to that, you're going to see where the Dirty Tree, to me, kind of shines. Alright, so before we move on to the Mesa, I just wanted to plug in something with a little bit more girth to it. This is an LTD 27-inch baritone tuned to drop A. I just want to see, you know, what these pedals do with like really low tunings on the EVH. So that's the raw sound. So let's start with the Dirty Tree. Let's go with the Plumes Circuit 1. Circuit 2. That pedal's really cool. I mean, it just kind of hits a note, especially that first circuit that I really like. So let's try the JHS on the JHS modded circuit. So in this instance, with the lower tuning, I probably wouldn't go after the JHS Bonsai. Both the Plumes and the Dirty Tree just give you a little bit more of that edge and bite with their circuits. So if I had to choose between these two, I might actually go for the Dirty Tree on the DT mode, playing something more low tuned. Alright, so now I've switched over to the Mesa Boogie Triple Rectifier. This is a first generation 3-channel rectifier, not a multi-watt. This was a 2001, so it has the green, orange, and the red channel. Now the red channel is the classic Mesa Boogie high gain sound, and it is what I'm going to be boosting to kind of give me that punch and clarity that I think these pedals can offer. The guitar I'm using for this is my Charvel SoCal 2, and I have the Ryan Fluff Bruce Fishman pickup installed, and it's in drop C. So here's what it sounds like with no boost. So right away you can hear it's got a lot more low end, a lot more like girth, and it just is a little bit dated in terms of the sound. You know, I didn't even know about boost pedals when I was a teenager, and so now I've been opened up to a whole new world of what you can do with the triple rectifier just by throwing a boost pedal in front of it. So let's start off with the Dirty Tree. So automatically, the Dirty Tree just takes that rectifier and just turns it up to 100. It's crazy how different the sound is between non-boosted and boosted. It's like night and day. And I think that's where the Dirty Tree really shines, is in a tube amp like this that has a little bit of a saggy low end, really tightening up that signal. So let's move on to the Plumes. So on the rectifier, when you push the front of this amp, you get some really interesting tones. So let me go back to the Plumes real quick. I'll show you what that level knob on the fully open, non-clipping circuit did, and you'll hear kind of where it gets a little wonky. The Plumes just has so much on tap in terms of how it pushes. I don't know, I really like the Plumes still. Maybe even a little bit more than the Dirty Tree on the rectifier on this Circuit 1. Just dialed back the level, dialed back the tone, and just keep the gain down. Really though, just like with the EVH, the Dirty Tree is a bit more transparent. Let's go over to the JHS and check out that JHS modded circuit. For everything I like about the TS10 circuit on this, the JHS modded circuit just pushes it up just a little bit more. But again, this on the Mesa, not nearly as obvious as the other two. Now granted, it's got a good sound when you push it, without it. And then with it. Retains a lot more of that low-end character. I like the Plumes. I like the way I can set it, and it's got everything on tap that I'm looking for. Yeah, Circuit 1 on the Plumes is kind of a happy middle ground between what the Dirty Tree can do and what your typical tube screamer does. It kind of splits the difference, but it also gives you the ability to kind of push it a little bit more. Similar to the Dirty Tree. Now, it's hard to say what's the most bang for your buck, given that there's such a discrepancy between the three. The Plumes is the cheapest. It's only about $100. The Dirty Tree is about $149, but it takes a while to get to you since it's coming from New Zealand and they're built to order. And then the JHS Bonsai is the most expensive at $249. But really, the JHS Bonsai has the most built into it. If you're mainly doing metal, you might skip this one and just go straight to something else. And out of these two, Plumes and the Dirty Tree, I would probably spend my $100 on the Plumes. But at the same time, the Dirty Tree is such a distinctive sound, especially for low tuning. If you're playing like drop A, or if you're playing 8 or 7 strings, the Plumes might be a little bit harder to dial in and get that real, punchy mid-range sound. So the Dirty Tree might actually be more geared towards that. So is the Dirty Tree worth the hype, and is it deserving of the kind of aura that surrounds it as being this, you know, really perfect pedal? I think for the most part, yes. I think what it does really well, but it's not going to be for everybody. The Plumes, on the other hand, was the Dirty Tree of like 2 or 3 years ago. When it first came out, it had a similar, you know, hype and, you know, fanfare going around it. And since then, we've gotten an inundation of boost pedals that do really amazing things that I have yet to try. On my board, I'm probably going to hang on to this Plumes pedal, but I'm always going to be on the hunt for really cool and really unique boost pedals, especially having these two amps. You know, that Blue Channel and that Mesa Boogie, you know, they thrive on boost pedals. So if any of you guys out there have suggestions, comments, let me know, because I'm on the hunt. So anyway, that's my spiel on the Dirty Tree. Really cool pedal, really good at what it does. It definitely holds its own against Tube Screamers and the almighty Plumes. So on that note, see y'all later.